everyone, welcome to At Home with Misty. This week we're making this simple 4-patch burst quilt. For this quilt, I'm using this beautiful Christmas layer cake called Holly Jolly by Urban Chiks for Moda. It just has such fun, whimsical, Christmassy prints, and I think it's great, but this quilt would also look beautiful in any collection. So to make this, you're going to need 1 layer cake of prints, 2.5 yards of background fabric. That's all the white that you see, which includes that first inner border. You're also going to need 1.5 yards for your outer border, and then 5.25 yards for your backing fabric. This quilt finishes up at 69 by 82. It's a great size and just perfect to snuggle up with for Christmas if that's what you're planning it for. So let me show you how to make this. It's super quick and easy. To begin, we are going to take our package of 10-inch squares and we're going to divide it in half. And so we're going to pick 20 of those squares that are going to make the big 4-patch bursts that you see in the middle. And so pick the prints that you like the best. So I'm just going to go through here. I love this poinsettia print here and these cute little Santas. So I'm going to grab them. And all of the ones that we're going to use for the centers of our block, we're going to trim these squares down to 9.5 inches. So I would stack up probably 4 or 5, whatever you're comfortable with, just to save you some time when you go to trim these. So I'm just going to line these up here and make sure they're all nice and straight. And then I am going to trim 1/2 inch off of 2 sides. So there's one. Oops, missed that little edge. And then again across here. So now my center squares measure 9.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and set those aside. Okay, so then once we have all 20 of those blocks cut down to 9.5 inches, the other half of our layer cake we are going to use to make our star points or the bursts of our block. So you can see them here. That's what we're going for. So let's pick something that'll look cute with these Santas. Let me see. I think I will go with maybe this holly one on top is the best one. It'll be cute. And so we're going to cut this in half, both directions, so that we have matching 5-inch squares. So I'll make a cut here, and I'll make a cut here. Oops, I want to make sure that stays nice and straight. Now you could stack multiples again to save yourself time, but you do want to keep them together in their matching sets. So just stack them back up together because that's what we're going to use. I decided to keep all of the same prints together. You could totally make this completely scrappy and mix all those star legs up. It would still be really cute. That's just not what I did for mine. So then for our background fabric, we need to cut some 9.5 by 5-inch rectangles and some 5-inch squares. And we are going to use 2 of our 9.5 by 5-inch rectangles with our 4 5-inch squares, and we're going to make some flying geese. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn these over, and I'm going to grab a pin or any type of marking tool. And we are going to draw a line. Oops, that's on white. Let me find a color that will show up better. We are going to draw a line corner to corner because that is going to be our sew line. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark all of these so that I have that ready. This is just a chalk pencil I'm using to mark mine, but like I said, this is the back side of the fabric and it is going to be in the seam, so you can pretty much use anything to mark. All right, I have those ready to go, and I have my 2 rectangles now, and I'm going to start by lining these up along one side, and I am just going to sew right on that line that I drew, not next to it, just right on. I'm going to line my needle up with that and sew straight down. All right, and so one of the things I like to do here is chain piece. So I'm going to grab my other rectangle and one more of our squares that we marked. We're going to line that up and we're going to put this right behind, and again, sew right on that line. There we go. Now I can trim these apart. Ooh, I almost forgot. I do have a bonus project, and we talk about how when you're making units like this, you can save your half square triangles a lot. So what I'm actually going to do before I cut this is I'm going to move over a 1/2 inch from that sew line. I'm just going to eyeball it. If you wanted to, when you were marking, you could measure over a 1/2 inch and draw another line. But I am just going to flip this around. So I have this 1/2 inch line on my machine. I'm just going to line this up here. And I'm just going to eyeball and go ahead and sew a 1/2 inch away from that line. And do the same thing on the other one. There we go. Now you can see I have those 2 lines of stitching. You can see the line right on the one that we marked and then the line about a 1/2 inch away. And so now I'm going to take my ruler and we're going to cut right between those lines so that we have a 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides. So let's go ahead and trim this one and this one. Just like so. And so now you see, instead of just having 2 loose triangles left over, we've got these great half square triangles that are ready and can be saved for this bonus project that I'm going to show you how to make in just a little bit. So I'll just stack those up. And now we can take these to the ironing board. And I'm going to go ahead and press these back. Just roll them back just like so. And the other. And so now that we have that done, we can use our other squares, and we're going to put these on the opposite side. And so the goal here is our line is going to intersect with this other triangle that we've added, essentially making a big flying geese unit. That's all we're doing here. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We'll sew right on that line for both of these and then move over a 1/2 inch, and I'll meet you back here when it's done. Okay, so I went all the way through that step. We sewed right on that line, went ahead and saved our other half square triangle, and I've trimmed and pressed these back so our 2 flying geese or star leg units are ready. So now we're going to pair this up with one of our background squares that we cut down to 9.5 inches. So let me just lay this over here so you guys can see how this works. We've got these cute little Santas. They're so jolly. And we are going to take our 2 star legs and set them on either side, just like this. And we are going to add a 5-inch square to the corner here. So now I'll start by sewing the 5-inch square to this, just like so, and then the star leg to this. And then we can attach these together. So let's go ahead and take this to the machine and put our block together. This quilt is so quick and easy, which I feel like if you're making a quilt for, you know, the holidays or to give to someone at the holidays, sometimes you just need one that's quick but still full of love. So we've got that one. Let's add this to our 9.5 inch square. Make sure it's all lined up and sail down to the bottom. There we go. Now we can open that up. If you want to take time to press in between here, you could. I am just going to trim these apart and put my star legs on the top where they go. I somehow flipped that, so you always want to double check. And now we can just line this up and put our block all together. So I'll take a few stitches there, and then I do want to make sure that this corner nests really nicely. So I'm going to line that up before I get down there. And then now I can cruise the rest of the way down the side of the block. There we go. Look at that. Now we can just press this so that it lays nice and flat. Always press from the top. Make sure I don't have any pleats or anything in the way. Then we can flip it over and see how our seams are behaving. Not too bad under there. There we go. And our block is done. Isn't that so fun? Now let's talk about the layout on this quilt. This quilt that I designed is 4 across by 5 down. And these are nice big 14-inch blocks, so it comes together really quick. But let's just do a little layout here for you. We move some of this out of the way. So to begin, we just put 2 blocks with the starbursts kind of pointing down and together, so they match up like that. And then the 2 next to it would be with the starburst pointing up, and then the rows just alternate. So down here it would be starburst up, like so. And then as you put it together, you'll see in the quilt behind me that all of the bursts come together to create this 4 patch in the middle with our big 10-inch squares, and then they just kind of burst outside around it. And so like I said, you'll see the 2 pointing down kind of gives you a half burst at the top of this column and a half burst at the bottom of this one. And all that does is it gives it a lot of movement, which I really like in a quilt. I think it turned out really nice. And so then you'll notice I put a little 2.5-inch inner border and a 6-inch outer border, and I quilted this whole thing with jingle bells. I just think it turned out adorable. But you might notice on my quilt ladder back here, I have a little bonus project hanging. So let me show you how to make a matching table runner. So this is that bonus runner. Isn't it so fun? It's such a great size. It measures 27 by 48, so it fills your table, and you can just, see some candles in the middle. It just makes it feel very festive and fun. I really, really love this. And like I said earlier, we're going to use those half square triangles that we had left over to make this smaller version of our block. You guys always say in the comments, you tell us to save those half square triangles, please give us something to do with it. So now I have done that. You have a smaller version of this block that we made, our 4-patch burst. So let me show you how we did it. So first we're gonna take our half square triangles and we're going to square them to 4 inches. I like a block lock, so I've gone ahead and pressed these open. If you like a Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer, you would just leave them folded in half. And so I am going to just slide this down to my 4-inch mark. If you're not familiar with the block lock, the lettering of the block lock is typically on your background fabric or the light side of your block. And this is not, it's actually pretty darn close. So I'm looking down here on my 4-inch line to make sure that this is looking nice and square. If it's too wonky, I'll slide it up so I have room to trim on both sides. But I'm gonna go ahead and slide this down because that looks good enough for me. And I'm gonna trim this and this. And then I'm just gonna turn this really quick and trim off this little overhang just because it gets rid of some of that bulk and it will make it easier to nest up that seam. So let me show you one more time how I'm gonna trim this down. These are the leftovers from our last block. Ooh, and this one is real wonky. You can see this side is right on the 4, but this one is off. So I am just gonna give myself some extra room. We'll square up this side. Slide that out of the way. And I think this is an important reminder of why squaring is really helpful here, because even though we think we're taking the same seam every time, they just get a little bit off. And so by squaring it down to 4 inches, we know all of these are gonna match up and we won't be frustrated with the project. So now instead of adding our squares to either side to create our star legs like we did in the large quilt, we are just going to match up our half square triangles together and sew these together to make our flying geese unit. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this to the machine and make sure it's all lined up. There we go. That looks great. Now we can press this. Now remember, you're gonna have 4 matching half square triangles left over because you made 4 star legs in the large quilt. So I've gone ahead and already made the other one of these that matches, exact same steps. And then the difference for this is you're going to need an additional 3/4 yards of your border fabric and 1 3/4 yards of your backing fabric. And that will do your little border here, the backing, as well as the centers of our bursts. You'll notice that I'm only using those 2 prints. So I have those here already, and we're gonna cut them down to 7.5 inches. So I have these trimmed up to 7.5 inches. That just came from that yardage amount that I gave you. And we're just gonna assemble our block just like before. So we'll put our star legs on one side and the top, and then now our square in the corner is just 4 inches. And so you can see how quickly that came together. I just did 2 rows of 4 across, and I made 1 burst in the middle, and then the half burst on either side with a 1.5 inch inner border and a 2.5 inch outer border, and it just turned out so cute. So this is such a fun collection. I think you'll notice how much I enjoy the fabric, but I also want to point out they have these great panels that make these adorable stockings and some cute gift tags and ornaments like I have here. Aren't these so fun? So I've just backed these on some felt to make the ornaments, and I used a little bit of bosal and some extra fabric and flipped these to make some gift tags. Aren't those great? But the panels are so cute, and then they also have just their Santa printed big in a panel, so you could make a giant wall hanging if you wanted. Aren't those so fun? I love it. Again, this collection is called Holly Jolly by Urban Chiks for Moda, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this quilt with our bonus runner, and I will see you next time. Hey everyone, it's Misty. Thanks for watching at home. If you aren't already a part of our Missouri Star family, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell if you want a notification every time we release a new video. I'll see you next Monday on the newest episode of At Home.